Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 224, which can be found at WMDpodcast.com/224. You can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. And you can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. David, another episode of I Told You So, another episode of Tomorrow's News Today.
Hold on. We have to admit when we're wrong, Dane.
Okay, what did we do?
Before we do that, before we start patting ourselves on the back, we did get one thing wrong. And it was last week when we were talking about the shooter. We thought that he might have been my mother was in hospice and these sons of bitches delayed and deposed. And it turns out that he was actually just, ideologically captured. We'll call it ideologically captured. And he went out and whacked the person. But the sentiment remains, the warning remains, is that's going to start happening unless you hold these people accountable. And before we kick off, here at WMD Studio North, we're getting the roof repaired right now. So if you hear a little construction in the background, it wasn't going pre-show, but apparently right when we hit the record button, they decided that was the perfect time to start fixing things. So anyway, if you hear a little construction in the background, I do apologize.
Well, although David is obviously right there and can hear it, and I can hear it kind of subtly on my end.
I'm not farting, is basically what I'm saying. It sounds a little bit like it could come through like that. I'm definitely not.
I would still be remiss if I didn't mention that the man, the myth, the legend, the man behind the scenes, the man who really makes this thing look even remotely and sound remotely professional, because it's definitely not David and I. Chris, over at Podsworth. If you, by the way, you need any audio work, you need any visual work done on your podcast, or even if it's not a podcast, just stuff for your business, anything
You're just audio, like a cool guy.
Anything audio visual you need done, check out Podsworth, podsworth.com. Super professionals in every sense of the word. And although, like I said, we appreciate David on the front end, letting the audience know that this is not, something that we can control. I wouldn't have any doubt that by the time this gets edited and turned out to you fine folks, you actually don't hear that because Chris has worked his magic. So,
but if you do about nothing, right?
If you do, David's disclaimer noted. And before we move on past the shooter thing, I just thought once I saw that what his true motivations were, again, assuming the guy, Luigi Mangione, if those of you are under a rock and don't realize that's the guy who they've nabbed for it, which a lot of weird things about how he was nabbed, which, raised my suspicion alarms a little bit.
Where all hopes and dreams go to die, McDonald's.
But if his manifesto is accurate, if he's the one that did it, if his stated motivations were his real motivations, that gave me pause to think about, because even though I wasn't cheering the murder of somebody like a lot of people on the internet are doing, it says something really sick about our society that kind of in math, people will jump to celebrate a murder, period. But in order to placate their own consciousness and not feel like they're bad people for doing that, because you are a bad person if you do that, but not that I'm judging. In order to make themselves feel a little bit better about doing that, they just imbued their own motives and what they would find as to make that murder justifiable. And they put that onto the shooter without knowing anything. They're like, oh, he must have just been really harmed by this company who denied grandma life-saving care, blah, blah, blah. And that's what everybody just jumped
to. Even if he wasn't, there's a grandma out there that was, so good for him, right?
Yeah. So once things start to work their way out and we see that his motivations were a little more leftist, communist, ideologically trending, again, according to the narrative as it currently stands, we can revise this later.
You'll see why we were saying that when we get into the episode, by the way.
Yeah. Is how about just for 5 seconds, and this is why kind of David and I hesitated to go full throat into the conversation about it last week, because it was too fresh, too new, didn't know enough to say enough. How about we all just pump the brakes a little bit and wait for some information to come out before we start building statues to people that just walk up behind people and shoot them in the back, in the middle of New York City, for whether you think the reason is justified or not. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
There's always a Family Guy clip for every situation. And all this reminds me of is that one clip from way back in the day where Peter goes, yeah, that's how I convinced Congress that we should go to war. And they go, And it's just him. And he goes, well, I respect that sentiment. But what we're also forgetting, America, is that everybody that doesn't want to go to war is gay. And then everyone starts going, I'm gay. I want to go to I'm not gay. I want to go to war. I was the first one to go to war. Like, that feels like that's what our society is now. And as much as we like to think that we're so far removed from the caves that we don't have these like animalistic incentives or like lemming drives in us to be accepted by society, we see this time and time again. Like, all it takes is one person to say something, and then like, we're Max, 6 feet. Like, he should have killed him. He should kill more. We should kill all the CEOs. Like, let's just chill. Let's just have, like, do what the WMD boys did last week. Give it pause, get some more information, then make your decision.
Right. Not that, we're any sort of like paragons of morality.
Oh, no, we are. We are the highest form of being that you could possibly achieve on this 120th political podcast of Australia's realm, political domain. So,
yeah,
Dane.
So without allowing that story to hijack this episode entirely, because I venture to say, which, by the way, there is another tie-in with that and today's story, which is the same people that were cheering the murder of a CEO were the same people during the time of COVID telling you that if you questioned anything the CEO of Pfizer had to say, then you were an anti-science, grandma-hating, misanthrope. So, Again, reconcile those two things in your own mind before you start rushing to lionize somebody who commits blatant and open murder in public. Okay. That's the last thing I'll say about it.
I swear to God, we're not gonna. But I got one more thing to say about Luigi.
and it wasn't out of left field, because that's exactly what we're talking about today. Right. We are talking about some more
being
blasty.
Right.
Some more. Yes,
we're being right again. We're being right again. It's our favorite thing to talk about.
Some more blasty from the COVID pasty, and we kind of attach this monikers to ourselves. Which, if you've been here long enough, you are in varying degrees of agreeing with us or not. That we are here to be tomorrow's news today. And how we go about that is simply by either ignoring or doing the exact opposite of whatever the establishment or the mainstream experts tell us to. And we end up being right more often than not. Well, and I'm also going to preface all of this by saying and I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, anecdotally, I think maybe the social media companies are starting to pare back their censoring of non-leftist, commentary on the internet. Like they went full-throated during COVID. Because of the incoming Trump administration, and they're fearful that, he might send the DOJ after him.
We're friendly. You can trust us again.
Because David and I have not exactly pumped the brakes on the things we talk about, and we haven't had any strikes in a while. Now, I'm not knocking on wood. I'm just saying that's a fact that it hasn't happened. But
today
here's the major but.
Here's the
if we're gonna get one, it'll be this episode.
We're gonna earn it today. We're gonna earn this one today.
You betcha. So yes, during the time of COVID and when the jabs were being forced on people, there were many people, obviously, David and I were not unique in this regard, sounding the alarm that not only should you not be forcibly injecting people against their will, but
because of
if you have just this singular data point, which is the government gave the producers of the vaccines exemption from liability, that the fact that they would even seek that out, let alone get it granted.
Exactly. To ask the question is to answer the question in that regard.
Should tell you that they weren't altogether as resolutely confident in the safety and efficacy of their product as they were having Fauci tell you on CNN. And so that gave us pause, and we thought, maybe this might hurt some people in the future. We don't exactly know how. And then as the information started to trickle out, it was things like myocarditis. And then they poo-pooed that and they said, it's just a little heart inflammation. It's not like it affects you for the rest of your life. And, it just kind of trickled out. And that's kind of where they left it. And in the middle of this milieu, there was Pfizer telling a federal judge that they wanted and deserved to keep the documents pertaining to their studies, as limited as they were, on the safety and efficacy of the vaccine to be kept under wraps for 75 years. Now, again, you already have exemption from liability. What are you afraid of? Why do you need to keep anything under wraps? It doesn't matter if it says you have a 80% chance of dying if you get your next shot. You're not going to get sued for it. So why do you need complete exemptions from liability, and B, to keep your stuff under wraps for 75 years. Just those two things alone, if you knew nothing else, if somebody airdropped you in a ship from planet Mars and you knew nothing about what was going on during COVID and you only knew those two things, if you had an IQ above room temperature, you would say, maybe there's some smoke and fire to this thing.
To put it this way, Dame, if your 14-year-old son stands up, grabs his laptop, and says, I'm going into my room and I don't want to be disturbed and I'm going to be doing my homework. If you're a parent and you don't go in there or if you don't say, hey, wash your hands afterwards or something, you're a bad parent. Anyway, all I'm saying is that why is that rationale of figuring out things that they're not telling you? Why is that applied to children in your own home that are supposed to be the most important thing to you to raise? Why don't you apply that to the thing that literally can tell you how to live your life every day of the year, 365 days, forever, in perpetuity? And then they've already proven to you in the past that they're more than willing to let some shit go to get what they want. So again, if you can solve that mystery of the 14-year-old with this laptop, why can't you solve it over here? Why can't you apply the same amount of logic to people that are in authoritarian figures? That's all we're saying. That's all we're really saying. Just have a little bit of doubt if they come out and say, oh, this is going to be great for you. Are you going to make a lot of money during this? Oh, yeah, we're going to make the most money that we've ever made. Cool. Have you hurt people before? Oh, yeah, we've been known to really hurt people before willingly. But I should trust you implicitly? Implicitly. Why? Because we're telling you to right now. Again, like all their past, you just forgot, like, oh, opioids didn't exist. And you just threw it all away because you were, I guess at the time you were scared, but that's the time when you need to buckle down the most and really hold the people accountable, because don't forget, it still hasn't come out yet, but the people that were telling you that this thing was safe and effective also might have been the same people that knew that this virus was being worked on in a lab.
Yeah.
And they didn't want you to figure that out either. So anyway, just hypocrisy and irony abounds in all places. So just, watch your ass, smell your jelly beans, question authority. That's it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Let's put that on a shirt. Watch your ass, smell your jelly beans, and question authority.
Right.
Yes. And in times like that, in times of fear, knowing full well that those that want to do things not always in your best interest, but to do those things directly to you, their first go-to is generally fear. And so when you're in that type of situation, because again, if we're going to make sure that something like what they did to us during COVID, and I'm not even talking about, I'm setting aside the vaccines for a second, just saying like telling people who are essential and who's not, telling people you can't work anymore, you got to lose your job because you don't get a medical intervention, et cetera, et cetera. When they want to do those kinds of things.
But then they'll turn around and say, my body, my choice.
Yeah. When they try to strike fear into your heart to
Right.
allow you or to make you allow them to do those things, stop for a second, deep breath, come to grips with the fact that they're appealing to your reptilian brain, that fight or flight response, and then override that with your prefrontal cortex. That's what differentiates us from the animal kingdom. We don't act on instinct. We do in a lot of cases, but we don't have to, because we have the capacity for abstract thought, critical thinking, et cetera, et cetera. Use, if they won't let you get in the gym and exercise your muscle, at least exercise your brain muscles and take a second, take a stock of what they're telling you, maybe consider what incentives they might have to be telling you that, and then move forward deciding on your own, decision, not on the fear that they've given you, on your own logic and reasoning, whether or not you should believe them. And if you do that, then you won't need, I'm kind of talking us out of a job in terms of growing the sane space. Then you won't need, WMD to be tomorrow's news today and kind of indicate where things are going in the future, because you'll be capable of it yourself. Everybody is. I say all the time, the thing that frustrates me the most, and this may apply to David too, is because I know that I'm not particularly bright. I'm not like Einstein level IQ. It's not like I have some like like magical insights into humanity that the rest of us don't have. It's because I'm of average intelligence and able to spot those things that it frustrates me so much, right? If I was super, super bright, I'd be like, well, I get why everybody else doesn't get it because I'm just really, I'm the smartest person around. But it's because I'm of average intelligence. That means it's not that hard to spot. It just takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of, willing to die on your feet rather than live on your knees sort of mentality. And that's all I'm asking. And if something like COVID is not going to happen again, it's going to take every one of us on an individual level. I know not everybody's going to do it, but it's going to take a majority of us moving in that direction. And that's actually what, brought the COVID regime down, was enough people standing up and being like, I'm not taking it anymore. We need that at the beginning. We need that in March of 2020, not in, November of 2023. And I think we can get there. That's why growing the sane space is important. And so, that's my humble hope for humanity.
To give them a little, get out of jail free card. If this is your first experience in the government lying to you, welcome. Again,
It's like that meme with the noose around his neck's first time.
Not my first time. Or again, Family Guy, when he's walking out to do when he's skydiving, like, is this your first time? No, this is not my first time.
Not my first time.
So like when we were growing up, just to give you a little insight, again, callback, holla. Our grandpa was taken from us by the government and then lied to our grandma, who tried to fight to get him back when she found out that he was still over there because they told her that he was dead. Long story. Go back and listen to
check it out. Origin story.
Go check it out. Long story short, we grew up watching our grandma fight the government, and then she would come home with like literal bold-faced lies under, from whoever she was challenging on information about Vietnam at that current date, sworn in, lying through their teeth, never got held accountable. So from the get, we had a healthy distrust for our leaders. So this is the first time that this has ever happened to you. Welcome. You're safe. You're with us. If you're listening with us or listening to us. And secondly, let that be a lesson to you. You should only fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. I should be president. I nailed it better than arguably our worst president at the time, but
can't fool me again.
can't shoot the shooter. What are you talking about? Anyway, welcome. It sucks finding it out. It sucks realizing that your dad's not a superhero, but sometimes, life is what it is, and you can't trust your government any further than you can throw them. And seeing as we've got this massive government, it's going to be pretty hard to chuck it anywhere. So just, like I said, watch your ass, smell your jelly beans, and question authority.
Indeed.
We're going to drive that one home today.
So what's, I wouldn't say we've necessarily been bearing the lead so much as we've been setting the stage, is what's got David and I talking about COVID again in December of 2024. Come on, guys. It's over. All right. What happened. It's over. But it's not over because, again, this is also part of the growing process, is reminding yourselves as often as possible that, again, it wasn't the first time. It was way worse than they have even admitted to up to the present date. And we have the receipts to back it up. So what are those receipts? We have an article that I would like you to read. We're going to link it down in the show notes page by the Daily Skeptic. It's a great summary of the report. But what I'm getting ready to share for you here on the screen is the actual report itself. And this is a report from Pfizer. You'll notice over here, it's quite lengthy. So, the Daily Skeptic article on this report is a very, very good summary. So start there. And if you want to get into the report itself, we will also have this linked at the show note page. But this is, and if you want to Google it for my audio only listeners that don't see what's on the screen here, and let me actually increase the size of this a little bit so the visual people can see it better. This is report C4591021. And this is Pfizer's own study in March of this year, of 2024, about, now that we're a couple years past the first introduction of the vaccines, about what are some of the health outcomes of those vaccines. Now, again, Safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective. We've already reported long ago on the podcast about, the Pfizer executive that went in front of the European, I forget what the name of the board was, but basically said, yeah, we didn't even bother testing for whether or not it actually stopped transmission. But, so they've kind of in drips and drabs, they've kind of released, little breadcrumbs here and there saying our entire narrative was BS. It was always BS, and we were making it up to coerce you to do things against your will. Well, I want to summarize just a few things that are in this report. And again, unlike CNN and MSNBC, we're going to link to everything we're talking about down on the show notes page so you can check it for yourself. And you can get in those comments and tell us that we lied or didn't misrepresent it or didn't get it right. But here are some of the key points from this report. The first thing is that compared to the unvaccinated, vaccinated individuals have a 23% higher risk of acute cardiovascular injury. And this gap worsens over time. So if you got, say, myocarditis at the time you were vaccinated, you already had a 23% chance more of getting it than somebody who was unvaccinated. But even as you age, as time passes, that gap increases between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated groups. Point number 2, you have a 20% higher risk of arrhythmia. You have a 2% higher risk of heart failure, although this number is yet not statistically significant. But if it tracks the same thing as acute vascular injury, that over time, this gap will widen and it will at some point become statistically significant. Come back and check in when that happens. You have a 30% higher risk of stress cardiomyopathy. You have a 40% higher risk of coronary artery disease, with risks also increasing over time. And you have a 130% higher risk of myocarditis within 21 days of getting the shot. So again, this all comes from this report, which is a Pfizer report, a study on their own vaccine that they released. Now, David, I guess before the next shoe drops, anything to say on those grim statistics?
Well, it doesn't sound like it was very safe, Dane. And it certainly, we would know
they've already admitted it's not effective because they didn't test for transmission.
Right. So what was it then? What exactly was it?
Yeah.
Again, it's just it's depressing. It's fucking depressing. It's vindicating because obviously we've been saying it. We sounded like loons back when we were saying that we were getting shouted down and canceled and such like that. But I mean, I was even reprimanded by somebody that I know because I couldn't come up with any VAERS for any of these athletes that were dropping down on the field with cardiac arrest. You know, the Hamlins, the Ericksons, and they're not alone. There's many videos of many athletes. These are purebred athletes falling over with fucking heart attacks on the field, in practice, whatever. I think they just had to call a game off a couple of weeks ago because it happened again in the Netherlands. So my response to him was, I don't have to show you the data, get your words right, David. The data or statistics to tell you what I see. I've never seen a fucking footballer, 25-year-old pristine male, make a tackle, walk back to the fucking huddle and fall over with a heart attack. It's never happened before in my lifetime. I've never seen
you were gaslit to think that just happens sometimes.
Right. Sometimes the helmet just hits their chest in just such a way. It's like, fuck off. He was a defender. He was tackling. It wasn't a helmet. It wasn't a concussion. There was no symptoms. He was fine. Then all of a sudden fell over with a heart attack. I know what I saw. Erickson threw the ball in, walked it back onto the pitch and fell over. I know what I saw. And this was right after they rolled it out. And it's like, well, I hadn't seen it before 2021. And now in 2021, I'm seeing it more often than I should, obviously. So something's changed. And the only thing that was introduced to an entire fucking population of the world, pretty much, or at least the advanced world, was this particular medical procedure that they didn't try to foist onto everybody. So again, at best, the government was misinformed, but more than likely they were trying to shove something into your arm. Kind of like they tell you how heroin dealers do it. They just shove the needle into your arm and, no, I'm addicted to heroin now. Like, there was no chance to just say no. All your fucking neighbors were pressuring you. Everybody was pressuring you, and they said peer pressure, you need to deny peer pressure. Well, some of us did. Some of the more lucky ones did, and those that were hurt by this, who do you hold accountable for it? Well,
yeah,
the same people we've been pointing to for the last fucking 4 years. So,
right. And, you know, like I said, this isn't hearsay. This isn't Alex Jones saying this. This isn't, you know, just somebody hypothesizing, which we were.
Sandy Hook happened.
Admittedly, we were forced to do all throughout COVID. And why did we have to theorize so much about what may or may not be happening based on the information that we had? Like we just talked about the, you know, exemption from liability and keeping things under wraps for 75 years, et cetera. We were forced to hypothesize because not only were they not releasing the information as they should have been if public health was their true concern, but you were censored, demonetized, shut down, fired from your job, et cetera, you know, if you said or questioned these things at the time. So again, it's not like this is, you know, from the Fauci type perspective of, you know, well, we did the best we could with the information we had at the time, and it was very chaotic and fast moving. You know, there are constant excuses, and we're just humans, and mistakes are going to be made, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, you had a lot more information than we did. But what's even worse than that is you wouldn't give us access to the information, and even worse than that, still, is that when we tried to get that information, or we just asked questions based on the lack of information that we were getting. Of, well, these are some other things that I would like to know before I let you inject something into my body, that we were shouted down, dismissed, demeaned, and, you know, vilified. So again, if that one lived experience, like David was talking about, we were kind of cradled to the grave with this kind of thing, being born into a unique situation with our family of, you know, distrust of people that say all the time until they're blue in the face that they have your best interest in mind, but their actions never demonstrate that they are. If this is the first time you experience, let it be the last. Because even for what we've seen over the course of our lives with our unique family situation, this has got to be even more egregious. Because as bad as what they did to the POWs in terms of abandoning them was, right, there was a few thousand POWs. And then when you extrapolate that out to the immediate family members that were impacted, you have maybe a few 100,000 people that were impacted by this. This, what they did during COVID, is billions of people all around the world were impacted by these lies and gaslighting and covering up and et cetera, et cetera. And again, the critical question is always this: what did you know and when did you know it? Oh. Because human beings are generally pretty forgiving, right? If it was true that they were just flooding us with as much information as they had, they didn't know any more than us, and they were making their decisions, I think most people would be pretty forgiving of that and be like, well, you know, it really was a chaotic time. But that's not it. They knew all of this at the time, and they wouldn't let you know it at the time as they were forcing you to make a decision that impacted your health or your life.
And then as they were doing it, they were shouting down people that actually made this fucking thing. There was the mRNA vaccine was just rolling out into production from what we knew. But apparently it had been invented, or at least had the patents pending back in 1991. I think Malone said that some of the first patents were pending
for the mRNA technology.
For mRNA technology back in 1991. So yeah, out of one breath, they said at first that this technology had been around for many years and we've been studying it. It's safe and effective. It's safe and effective. And then all of a sudden, their narrative changes halfway through rolling this shit out, and they're saying, well, no, I mean, we did our research, and it's safe and effective, but Malone's a kook, and he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Well, he was named on the patent, and a lot of them, so he would know what he's talking about. And who was the other? It was Malone.
I forget the guy's name, but he died right before COVID happened.
Right. But no, I was talking about the cardiologist that wrote like most of the papers on everything.
Peter McCullough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then he said that, hey, this thing's affecting people's hearts. I'm watching it live. And they're like, oh, what the fuck does he know? It's like, and then everyone goes, yeah, what the fuck does he know? It's like, well, he is the most published person out there. What the fuck do they have to gain? What do you have to gain when you come out and say anything? They got lambasted. Yeah. Like, so why? What was their incentive? This other incentive has a lot of money and a lot of power. These other two are just trying to speak what their truth is, and they're getting lambasted for it. So again, it's hard to see when you're the forest for the trees when you're right against it. But again, these are known. I mean, again, go back to the teenager with his laptop going into his room. You don't need to know precisely what's going on, but you know something ain't right. Put it that way. So,
and keep in mind that all of this comes on the heels of within the last week. So, and we talked about it at the time. So Pfizer had filed their motion with the court because they were, taken to federal court for, to be forced to turn over some of the data that they did in terms of studying the risks associated with their shots. And they literally argued to the court, we would like to keep this stuff under wraps for 75 years. And that motion was denied. Federal court's like, no, you're not going to keep it under wraps. And they were ordered to turn over documents at that time. Well, just within the last week, another federal judge has ordered Pfizer to turn over an additional 1 million pages worth of documents related to studies about, the vaccine trials for their COVID-19 vaccine. So again, we're 3.5 years past the introductions of the shots, and they are still fighting like tooth and nail for information not to come out. Again, I say this all the time I apologize if I sound like a broken record. They are fighting for you not to have information in an environment where they already know that you can't do anything about it, even if you have that information, meaning individually. You can't sue them. So what are they protecting, if not continuing profits, their stock price, et cetera, et cetera? Because again, even though you can't sue them individually, if it gets out there how bad this thing really is in terms of like everybody knows it and not just the people that are, occupying the same space here on our humble little podcast, you're going to see a mass exodus of people away from all Pfizer products and not just vaccines.
I just have a quick question for you.
High time is what I say.
Do you think that there'll be actual writing on this page that they have to present to this court? Or is it going to be like the CDC when they feigned like they were getting tough on Pfizer and they demanded a report that was 126 pages long, all redacted? They're like, here's your fucking report. They just like grab their nuts in front of the CDC, and the CDC is like, well, we got it. We got all the information right here. It's like, I don't know of a lot of people that try to hide all of their do-goodings, put it that way. Most people want, if you did something right, you want credit for it. If you did something wrong, you usually don't. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I will say this report that we just pulled that data from for this episode, I don't know how that report came into public hands. I don't know if that was some of the documents that they were ordered to turn over previously. I don't know if they were already going to put it out and, just some internet sleuths dug it up or whatever the case may be. But I will say that, in terms of your question about, are they truly going to turn over anything? Is it going to be, all redacted? Of this report in and of itself, as damning as it is, based on that information that I just shared earlier in the episode, the fact that it's out there, is something. But on the other hand, I also hesitate to think, if this is what they are letting out, knowing that they could take that route of, just redacting everything, how much worse is it?
Right.
And that is still just in the realm of speculation. We don't know.
That's conspiracy theory shit.
Yeah.
But
again, the conspiracy theories keep progressing into conspiracy fact, with a very short passage of time.
The fun thing about being a conspiracy theorist is I don't have to be 100% right. I can be slightly right, but for you to be in that moral high ground, you have to be 100% correct all the time. And there's no fucking way that you were 100% right the entire time, and now you're trying to hide it. That's just that dog don't hunt.
Yeah,
so
those two things don't match up. Right.
No.
If you're on the up and above board and you have nothing to hide,
but really they were doing that back then too. They were gaslighting you back then. They don't gaslight you when you're on the right track, when they're on the wrong track. They wouldn't gaslight you like, I think we should be giving Pfizer more money because of all the hard work they're doing and saving our lives. Like, no, please. Okay, we're just Pfizer. Moderna's out there helping too. Don't give us too much credit. We don't want any more of your money. Please, come on. We're not in this game for the money. We're in it for the people that we save.
Yeah.
My fucking ass.
Yeah.
Anyway.
By the way, it's funny you say that because I think I recall, I could be misplaced. Somebody definitely said it. I don't know if it was this individual, but Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer at the time during COVID, I believe is the one that said this, that he promised that really Pfizer wasn't going to make any profit on these vaccines at all. They were getting them out there quick because it was what was needed to save lives. And
we're only charging bare minimums.
They were just going to charge basically their costs.
We're just not going to give it to Africa because they can't afford it. I mean, because we haven't studied how it affects Africans yet. But we're going to keep it in this country because we're definitely... And people even bought it too. Like, I just... Like they said, why don't you go get the jab? It's free. It's not even as like, it's free. Like, yeah, the government pays for it. It's like, oh, really? With all the money that the government makes, where does that come from again? It's like, oh yeah, well, it's not free, but I mean, you might as well get it then because it's your money anyway. It's like, oh, so you just gave a company my money to force me to take a shot that I don't want without consulting me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing all that. I'll go get 2. Oh, wait, I have to get 2 for it to work and be safe and effective, right, Dane?
Yeah, I think what are we up to now? 7 or 8. So 2 you're woefully behind on your schedule, David.
I got to go get updated. Can I get 5 in a row one time?
Yeah. So, listen, I mean, believe me, nobody wishes more than David and I that this dead horse would stop being, didn't need to be beat anymore, but the thing just won't actually die. It looks like it's dead, but it's not dead.
No, it's a bad horror movie where the horse is the killer and it keeps coming back to life and kicking people's heads off.
Because, listen, if we can never accomplish anything else with this show, we want to at least accomplish this.
Yeah.
We don't want people to forget. Because again, as soon as you forget, it's again that old cliche, but it's a cliche because it's right. People that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Let's not repeat that. Because I can promise you, it's as bad as that was, that whole COVID experience. If you forget and let them get away with it again, it will be worse.
Oh, yeah.
So
that was a warning shot across your bow.
Yeah.
That's like, hey, you need to wake up. Or if you don't, worse shit's going to happen. And like I said, think about, and I don't know if I pity them or if I have nothing but unbridled disdain for them. But the people that never come back, that never came back from that shit. Like the Sam Harrises of the world.
Yeah.
Those fuckers you see driving in a car alone with gloves and a mask on.
Still today.
In 2024. Like, I don't know whether to feel sorry for them or to just say, hey, like, what's wrong? What's going on? Do you need to talk to somebody? It seems like you need to talk to somebody because this has gone on way too long. Like this is some kind of weird sadistic, shit. What is it called when you fall in love with your, God damn it.
Stockholm Syndrome?
Thank you. Stockholm Syndrome. Like they said that, number one, they said that masks weren't effective years ago, especially not that piece of shit surgical one that you're wearing, by the way, below your nose, and that when you
touch 47 times a day,
that when you go to cough, you pull it down to cough outside of it and then put it back on. Like, cool, you're not even operating it appropriately. So again, I don't know where we go from here, but I do know that if more people like the Sane Spacers are out there, I feel a lot more safe with my freedoms in this country. I don't know about you, Dane.
Yes, I concur. Well, listen, folks, I will say this, that if we can, it still remains very in flux. But if we can get another episode out to you before Christmas, we will definitely try to. But David's got family plans. I got family plans. It might be tough to do. So if this is the last time...
You might be sick of our faces.
If this is the last time we see you before Christmas, have a Merry Christmas or whatever other holiday you practice. And a Happy New Year, because we will see you on the other side in 2025.
Fun story, true too, Dane. The first night of Hanukkah is on Christmas, so that's a nice little coming together of sorts. So
that is. I like that. I like that.
It's not bad.
So yes. So if you don't hear from us again during the week of Christmas, we trust that most of you are probably spending time with your family anyway. So the WMD boys are not high on your priority list. Although we would love to spend Christmas with you, but if you don't hear from us again before then, we will see you on the other side of the new year in 2025 and hopefully marching towards the incoming of a slightly more rational administration that at least at bare minimum doesn't absolutely hate our guts and want us to be all lined up in front of trenches. So, I feel like that's a small bit to ask for from your government.
Way to take a nice sentiment and then just shit all over it right at the end there, Dane. Take a nice little happy... Exactly. Give them a little bit of happiness and then smack it right out of their hands. That's good. That's good, Dane.
Merry Christmas.
That's the appropriate. That's how you make a podcast successful in Australia. I tell you what. But anyway, with all that being said, with those Yuletide tidings, where can they find episode 223 of Weapons of Immune Destruction, Dane?
You can find this episode at wmd.com/224. They can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Immune Destruction. They can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and X. While you're over at the webpage, wmdpodcast.com, make sure to check out the Support Our Work tab for all of the ways that you can support the show. But other than those, monetary ways, you can also support the show in all kind of free ways, liking, subscribing, sharing, getting in the comments, where some apps let you, like tag for later or save for later banner for certain videos. All of those things are algorithm food for the podcast. So we thank you for your service. But also you can just do the simple word of mouth, tell friends and family about us, encourage them to join us and you in the sane space. And, one person at a time, I'll be damned. We will not allow something like COVID happen again. So we are here to arm you with those weapons to destroy the memes of your friends and family so that they don't tell you next time that if you don't do whatever President dipshit has to say that, you hate grandma, you'll have the weapons to fight back against that. So thank you for all of your time, for all of these many years. When did we start? We started in 2020. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
4 years you've been with us, some of you. Thank you for that. And let's do another 4 more.
Here's to another couple, at least, if we don't get, silenced.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We put up the test balloon. Will YouTube ban us for this episode?
Are you cool, YouTube? Because here's your chance.
If they don't, I think we're in the clear.
You down with OPP? Is that what you're down with? Is that what you're down with, YouTube? Anyway, well, with all that being said, happy Yuletide tidings. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. One last time. And until then, until what, 2025? Is it 2025?
We might get one out before Christmas. I don't know. I just wanted to, but yes, if not, then 2025. Yeah.
We're getting old, by the way.
Yeah,
until
let's stop that shit right now.
I'm trying. Anyway, stay safe, guys. But more importantly, stay free.